What if I told you some of the strangest cartoons ever made didn't come from big studios or Saturday mornings, but from forgotten corners of animation history? Shows so odd, so offbeat, that they quietly vanished while everyone else moved on. Half experiment, half accident, these cartoons played by no rules. Somewhere between imagination and chaos, they left behind stories that still feel unreal. Stick around. Some of these weren't meant to last, and that's what makes them unforgettable. Number 15. Fantastic Maxx, 1988. At first glance, Fantastic Maxx looks like a simple kids' cartoon. A baby, a spaceship, bright colors. Problem solved, right? Not even close. This show feels like someone took a toy commercial, removed the instructions, and let imagination run completely unchecked. The series follows a talking baby who travels through space with two strange companions, a robotic helper and a grumpy alien protector. But the tone is what makes it memorable. Episodes jump from playful to oddly intense without warning. 1 minute, it feels like gentle comedy. The next, it's dealing with surprisingly heavy ideas like loneliness, responsibility, and survival, all through the eyes of a baby who barely understands what's happening. The animation is rough around the edges, even by late 80s standards. Movements are stiff, backgrounds feel empty, and pacing is unpredictable. That awkwardness gives the show a dreamlike quality, as if you're watching someone else's half-remembered memory. Dialogue is sparse, often replaced with exaggerated reactions and visual storytelling. Fantastic Maxx didn't last long, and it never became a household name. But that's part of its charm. It feels experimental, strange, and slightly unpolished, like a prototype that somehow made it to television. Watch it now, and you'll wonder how it ever aired. And once you notice that feeling, it's hard to shake. Number 14. The Bluffers, 1986. The Bluffers is one of those cartoons that looks friendly until you really pay attention. On the surface, it's about animal characters living in a forest, trying to protect their home from a group of troublemakers. Sounds harmless, but the tone tells a different story. This show has an unusually sharp edge for its time. The villains aren't silly or cartoonish. They're greedy, manipulative, and always plotting. Meanwhile, the heroes aren't fearless champions. They're cautious, anxious, and constantly reacting to threats they barely understand. That tension runs through every episode. Visually, the animation is clean but restrained. Colors are muted. Backgrounds feel tight and enclosed, which adds to the sense that danger is always nearby. The pacing is slower than most cartoons from the era, letting moments breathe instead of rushing to jokes. What makes the Bluffers truly strange is how serious it feels without ever saying it out loud. There are no big speeches, no lessons spelled out, just a constant sense that safety is fragile and can disappear if you stop paying attention. That mood made it hard to market and easy to forget. Today, it plays less like a kid's cartoon and more like a quiet warning wrapped in fur and animation. It's subtle, unsettling, and unlike almost anything else from that decade. Number 13. Felix the Cat, 1958. Most people think they know Felix the Cat, the silent era icon, the playful trickster. But the television revival from 1958 is a completely different creature. And honestly, it's strange in ways no one warns you about. These episodes ditch the smooth charm of the original shorts and replace it with stiff animation and surreal storytelling. Felix now lives in a world where logic barely exists. Objects talk, space bends. Entire plots feel like they were written 5 minutes before airing. The low-budget shows everywhere, recycled movements, simple backgrounds, long pauses filled with awkward silence. But that emptiness creates a strange mood. It feels lonely, detached, almost hypnotic. Stories jump from one idea to the next without explanation. One moment, Felix is solving a problem. The next, the problem has changed completely. There's no emotional buildup, no clear structure, just a series of events that happen because they can. That unpredictability turned audiences away at the time, but today it feels oddly modern, like an early experiment in abstract storytelling. It's not comforting, it's not exciting, it's just strange enough to keep you watching, wondering where the rules went. And once you realize there are no rules, the experience changes completely. Number 12. The Brothers Grunt, 1994. This is where things get uncomfortable. The Brothers Grunt isn't trying to be likable. It isn't trying to teach anything. It exists purely to make you react. The animation is intentionally rough. Characters are exaggerated in unsettling ways. Movements feel heavy, slow, and awkward. Even the sound design seems designed to irritate rather than entertain. There's barely a story. Two brothers wander from place to place, reacting to situations that make no sense and lead nowhere. Dialogue is minimal. Faces stretch into expressions that linger too long. Nothing resets cleanly between scenes. This show aired briefly and disappeared just as fast. And it's easy to see why. It didn't fit anywhere. Too weird for kids, too abrasive for casual viewers, too strange to explain in a promo. But viewed today, it feels like a time capsule from an era when animation was testing boundaries without asking permission. It's not comfortable. It's not nostalgic, but it's honest in its weirdness. Love it or hate it, the Brothers Grunt proves that sometimes animation exists just to see how far it can go. Number 11. Cool McCool, 1966. Cool McCool looks like a parody, sounds like a parody, and then suddenly becomes something else entirely. Inspired by spy stories of the 60s, this cartoon takes the idea of a secret agent and strips it of logic. The main character barely reacts to danger. Situations explode around him while he stays calm, detached, and oddly bored. Meanwhile, the world around him is pure chaos. Visual gags pile up. Characters enter scenes for no reason and leave without explanation. The animation style is sharp and graphic, leaning into bold shapes and sudden cuts. It feels more like a moving poster than a traditional cartoon. Timing is intentionally off. Jokes land late. Some never land at all. That anti-humor confused audiences when it first aired. People expected fast laughs and clear stories. Instead, they got something dry, surreal, and unpredictable. Looking back now, Cool McCool feels ahead of its time. It plays with expectations, breaks rhythm, and refuses to guide the viewer. You either adjust to its strange logic or get left behind. And if you lean into it, you'll realize just how unusual it really was. Number 10. Animal Impics, 1980. Animal Impics feels like a cartoon that accidentally wandered into adult territory without realizing it. On paper, the idea sounds harmless. Animals compete in Olympic-style events. Simple, right? But the execution is where things get weird. The characters talk like exhausted professionals, not cheerful mascots. They complain about pressure. They show jealousy. They celebrate wins with tired relief instead of joy. The humor is dry, sometimes so subtle it barely feels like a joke at all. The animation style is loose and sketchy, almost unfinished. Movements flow strangely, as if the animators were more interested in mood than polish. Backgrounds are minimal, keeping the focus on characters who feel oddly human in their behavior. What makes Animal Impics stand out is its tone. It doesn't cheer for competition. It quietly questions it. Winning doesn't always feel good here. Losing doesn't feel dramatic. Everything exists in a strange emotional middle ground that kids rarely expect and adults don't usually look for in cartoons. It aired once, quietly slipped away, and became a forgotten curiosity. Watching it now feels like uncovering an animated thought experiment. Not loud, not flashy. Just quietly strange in a way that sticks with you long after it ends. Number 9. The Maxx, 1995. The Maxx doesn't behave like a cartoon. It behaves like a broken memory trying to explain itself. The story jumps between the real world and a strange inner landscape where logic dissolves. Characters exist in multiple versions of themselves, never fully agreeing on what's real. The animation mirrors that confusion with sharp angles, empty spaces, and sudden stillness. This series aired on late-night television where expectations were already low and attention spans shorter. That worked in its favor. The Maxx didn't explain itself. It didn't pause to help you catch up. If you missed something, it kept moving. Dialogue is sparse but heavy. Silence often says more than words. Scenes linger just long enough to feel uncomfortable, then cut away without closure. At the time, it confused viewers. Some thought it was unfinished. Others thought it was pretending to be deep. But years later, it feels intentional, like animation stripped down to emotion instead of entertainment. The Maxx didn't aim to be popular. It aimed to exist. And because of that, it became one of the strangest animated experiences of the 90s. Not forgotten because it failed, but because it never fit anywhere to begin with. Number 8. Spicy City, 1997. Spicy City feels like animation after midnight, not because it's shocking, but because it's tired, gritty, and uninterested in pleasing anyone. Each episode tells a different story set in a future city that looks worn down rather than advanced. Buildings feel cramped. Characters feel drained. Nothing is shiny or hopeful. Even the humor feels exhausted. The animation style is rough and jagged, almost uncomfortable to watch at times. Faces stretch oddly. Movements feel heavy. It's not trying to be smooth. It's trying to feel real in a distorted way. Stories rarely end cleanly. Problems don't get solved. Characters don't grow. Episodes just stop, leaving you with unanswered questions and a lingering mood. When it aired, audiences didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't funny enough to relax with. It wasn't dramatic enough to fully invest in. That made it easy to forget. Now it plays like a time capsule of animation, testing darker tones without guidance. It's strange, uneven, and deeply atmospheric. Spicy City doesn't ask for your approval. It just exists and dares you to sit with it. Number 7. Wizards, 1977. Wizards feels like a dream that shouldn't make sense, yet somehow does. It blends fantasy, science fiction, and satire into something that refuses to settle into one category. The animation style shifts constantly. Some scenes are detailed and expressive. Others feel rough and unfinished. That inconsistency gives the film a handmade quality, like it's being assembled as you watch it. The story moves in strange leaps. Characters appear suddenly, vanish just as fast, and return without explanation. Humor sits next to serious moments without warning, creating a tone that keeps you off balance. When it was released, audiences didn't know how to react. It wasn't friendly enough for families and not clean enough for mainstream animation fans. That awkward position pushed it into the background. Today, Wizards feels fearless. It didn't aim to please, it aimed to experiment. And in doing so, it created something unforgettable. Watching it now feels like stepping into an alternate version of animation history, one where rules never fully formed. Number 6. The World of David the Gnome, 1985. At first glance, this looks gentle, soft colors, calm voices, friendly characters, but beneath that surface is something quietly heavy. The world of David the Gnome moves at a slower pace than most cartoons. Stories unfold patiently. Conflicts are small but meaningful. Loss is implied rather than shouted. The animation is simple and clean, designed to feel comforting. But the themes underneath deal with endings, change, and the idea that nothing lasts forever. That emotional weight often catches viewers off guard. There's no loud action, no flashy humor, just moments of reflection wrapped in fantasy. Characters accept change instead of fighting it. And that acceptance is what makes the show feel unusual. It aired during a time when cartoons were becoming louder and faster. This one chose the opposite path. That choice made it easy to overlook, but hard to forget once you really see it. David the Gnome doesn't demand attention, it quietly earns it. And that quiet confidence is what makes it one of the strangest and most memorable animated series of its era. Number 5. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Fantastic Planet does not feel like a cartoon made for comfort. It feels like animation designed to unsettle you slowly, quietly, and on purpose. The story takes place on a distant world where giant blue beings live above tiny human characters. The animation style is flat and surreal, with stiff movements and backgrounds that look more like moving paintings than sets. Nothing flows naturally. Everything feels slightly off, as if the world itself is rejecting logic. Dialogue is minimal. Music does most of the emotional work, creating a cold, drifting mood that never fully relaxes. Scenes stretch longer than expected, forcing you to sit with images that feel unfamiliar and sometimes uncomfortable. When it was released, audiences did not know how to classify it. It wasn't playful. It wasn't fast. It didn't explain itself. That confusion kept it on the sidelines for years. Watching it now feels like discovering an animated dream that refuses to wake up. Fantastic Planet doesn't guide you, it observes you watching it, and by the end, you're not sure whether you understood it or whether it understood you instead. Number 4. The Point, 1971. The Point looks friendly, round characters, simple songs, soft colors. But underneath that surface is a cartoon that asks strange questions without warning. The story follows a boy who doesn't fit into a world obsessed with sameness. Every character speaks in rhymes. Every rule feels arbitrary. Logic bends constantly, creating a place that feels calm and unsettling at the same time. The pacing is slow, almost hypnotic. Songs don't rush. Scenes linger. Silence appears when you least expect it. That calmness gives the story weight, even when nothing dramatic is happening. At the time, it confused families. It wasn't funny enough for kids and not playful enough for casual viewers. That made it easy to overlook, but revisiting it now feels different. The simplicity hides depth. The questions it asks don't have answers, and the story never pretends they do. The point doesn't shout its ideas. It hums them softly and lets them echo. That quiet confidence is what makes it strange and unforgettable. Number 3. Clutch Cargo, 1959. Clutch Cargo might be the most unsettling cartoon ever aired for one simple reason. The mouths are real. The show uses animated faces with live human mouths placed on top. The result is something that looks almost human but never fully becomes it. Once you notice it, you can't look away. Stories follow adventure heroes traveling the world, solving problems, and escaping danger. But the animation style overwhelms everything else. Characters stare forward without blinking. Expressions never fully change. Voices don't match faces. This wasn't done to be scary. It was done to save money. That decision accidentally created something deeply uncomfortable. When it aired, children watched it without explanation. Adults didn't talk about it, and eventually, it vanished. Today, Clutch Cargo feels like animation slipping into the uncanny without realizing it. It's not loud, it's not intense, it's quietly disturbing in a way that feels unintentional, and that makes it unforgettable. Number 2. Cool McCool, 1966. Cool McCool returns near the top for one reason: it knew exactly what it was doing. The show takes spy stories and drains them of excitement on purpose. The hero barely reacts. The danger never feels urgent. The jokes land awkwardly, or not at all. Visuals are bold and graphic. Scenes cut suddenly. Characters appear and vanish without explanation. Timing feels wrong in a way that feels intentional. Audiences expected laughs. Instead, they got anti-humor. That confusion ended the show quickly, but watching it now feels surprisingly modern. Cool McCool doesn't chase attention. It waits for you to catch up, and if you don't, it keeps moving anyway. It wasn't forgotten because it failed. It was forgotten because it arrived too early. Number 1. The Brothers Grunt, 1994. Nothing on this list feels stranger than the Brothers Grunt. From the very first moments, it makes one thing clear. This is not here to comfort you. There is no clear direction, no familiar rhythm, no sense that the story will guide you anywhere safe. Instead, you're dropped into a world of constant motion, odd sounds, and exaggerated animation that feels intentionally exhausting. The characters drift from place to place with no real goal. Scenes begin without warning and end without resolution. Faces stretch into expressions that stay frozen just a second too long, creating an uneasy feeling that never fully goes away. Even the quiet moments feel heavy, as if silence itself is part of the design. What makes the show truly unusual is its attitude. It never tries to win you over. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't soften its edges. This was animation created as an experiment first and entertainment second. That choice made it nearly impossible to market and very easy to overlook when it first aired. Watching it now feels like uncovering something unfinished on purpose. The polish is gone. The structure is gone. What's left is pure reaction, raw movement, and discomfort that feels deliberate. It may not be enjoyable in a traditional sense, but it's unforgettable. The Brothers Grunt didn't fit into animation history. It floated just outside of it, and that's exactly why it earns the top spot. So what happened to these cartoons? They didn't fail loudly. They faded quietly. Too strange, too early, too uncomfortable to become favorites. But that's exactly why they matter. They remind us that animation was once unpredictable, experimental, and fearless. If one of these surprised you, share it. If one confused you, even better. The weirdest stories aren't the ones everyone remembers. They're the ones waiting to be rediscovered.